What's up, everybody? It's your man, Danelle, aka Small Guy Promotions, aka the Omaha Fatty, coming with another podcast episode of What's Up, Omaha. And today I have a wonderful couple, joining me today. Usually the podcast is a chance to speak with people around the Omaha area, but we're going to the East Coast, like South, on this episode. A great couple that I've met through TikTok, and I've followed those guys. I don't know, it's probably been like 4 or 5, 6 months. I don't even know how long it's been, but we've got Brian and Amy. Hello, Brian and Amy.
What's up? What's up, Omaha?
Thanks for having us.
And we were talking before we went live about the power of social media and TikTok and whatnot. So you guys are in North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
And I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and that's how powerful social media can be, bringing people together. I just really like what they do, and I'll let you guys talk about what your TikTok account is about. And I know you started a Twitter account as well. So working on a dream, tell the people about it.
So working on a dream started because we were paying off all of our student loans, which equaled about 290 something thousand worth. Right now we got 25,000 left, but about a year ago, one of the people that I work with, he started getting into TikTok and I started getting into it. He got me into it. So through that, I found a bunch of people, like motivational people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Eric Thomas and just people like that. And when Gary Vee started talking about like making your own, just telling your story, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that makes perfect sense, telling your story. So I was like, I looked and I was like, she got me into the Dave Ramsey thing. That's where this all started, is we were paying off all our debt. And I was like, we're going to tell our story of paying off all this debt, like, because that number is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like, how silly this number is.
And he got me into TikTok.
Yeah. So I would just turn it on. I'm just like, this is what we're going to do. We had no idea what we're doing, but
yeah, he just came home one day and was like, let's just start telling our story. And I just figured if it could help one person.
Yep, that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
I always call that the ripple effect. Like if you go out and you, as you said, tell your story, and then even if that one person hears it and they tell their story to someone else and it just keeps going, you know, it's a great thing. It's so inspiring to see other people out there. It's not always positive things, but if you're out there going through things in life and you can, you know, tell your story and what it's like to go through the experience, it helps people. So
just give them that hope.
Yep.
Yeah.
As long as you can have that hope that you can do something, anything's accomplishable.
Yeah. So
and
how long?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's hard. Like, I think one of the things that is going to make it, like, now, like, people are looking at this story now, like, this is not the sexy story. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is not like a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, when we just keep posting and keep, like, I don't know, maybe sharing or maybe, what do you call it? Reviewing some of these old posts of like where we were then, where we are now. That's going to be that's where I saw it being the incredible story.
Yep, you guys have it's out there. So like you can go back and be like, hey, remember we were, you know, $200,000 in debt, and you know, I watch you guys taking the links off and whatnot, and it's always great to see. And you guys make it fun. Amy, can you tell us like how you found Dave Ramsey?
So I was in PT school. I'm a physical therapist. And so when you're in physical therapy school, you have to go on clinicals. And I was supposed to have a clinical near my house, but it got changed at the last minute. And so I ended up having to room with a friend of mine from undergrad. And so she just happened to sign up for the class at her church. She's like, oh, I'm doing this financial class. And I was like, you have to pay for a financial class? Like, I was so skeptical.
Right.
Like, okay. And so, you know, I went and was doing my classwork and she had her classwork. And the biggest saying that Dave Ramsey has is more is caught than taught. And that's so true, because I just kind of sat back and watched what she had to do through the class. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yep.
And so, but I felt that it wasn't plausible for us until I was out of school. And so that was in 2013. And then around 2015, right before we got married, we decided to take the class together with another couple friend. And then we started it. Well, no, we started the class in 2016, right after we got married.
Okay. Yeah, and it's great. So you guys have, or when did you go from taking the class to actually implementing the rules and concepts that he speaks about in Financial Peace and the Total Money Makeover?
So like every week, it was like a week of like DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
She let us have for a little bit, let us borrow.
Shannon let us borrow them.
Yeah. So every week he gives you kind of like an assignment. Okay. So like week 1 or week 2, I think he's like, okay, you're going to do your budget. And that's where you start. You start with your budget and you break everything down. When you start breaking everything down, that's when it starts. If it doesn't start clicking there, it ain't going to click, because that's when everything starts clicking for you, because you're just like, damn, I'm wasting a lot of money.
Yep. When you can actually see it.
Mm-hmm. So we started the classes mid-January of 2016, and we started officially Baby Step 1 February 1st of 2016. Nice.
And what was the peak of debt that you guys had when you started then?
297,000.
Man, that's like 2 houses.
Maybe
like 3 in certain areas.
It's the amount of interest that it was. It's like $60,000, or how much in interest was it? I don't even remember. It's at least like $60,000 to $70,000 in interest. We haven't calculated all that because
1 year on one loan, it was over $25,000 we paid in interest.
Oh man, and that's how they kill you. Like it's bad enough that it's so expensive, but then when they hit you with the interest on top of that, and of course with interest rates, the more that you owe, the more that you pay. Yep.
It's the man. I thought about starting up my own loan company after this, because I don't get this.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
It's crazy, but that's when you go through school and whatnot. That's always like what they preach to you is after school you have to go to college, and after college you get a job. But like Dave Ramsey says in the book, see, I didn't take Financial Peace University. I just happened to find Dave Ramsey back when I was in my early 20s. I was flipping through some AM stations. I'm not sure why. I must have been looking for like a sports channel or something. And there was like this block of time of like 6 hours. There was 2 other guys. It was Dave Ramsey, a guy named Ray Lucia, and then I can't remember the third guy's name, but they were all talking about financial stuff. So I was like, okay. I listened a couple of times, and then it turned into me listening every day. And then I bought the Total Money Makeover book. My wife and I, we went through it. Like I don't read books, like not like fiction and all. I'm not into that. But if I can find a good like real life book like that that's helpful, man, I read through that book so fast. And then what I did was I shared it with my friends, like my close circle of friends. And one of my other friends had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so we started like a little book club for a couple of months, and then we would meet, and then we would just talk about the different chapters and stuff that we went through and how we were trying to get out of debt. And now I think, 10, 15 years later, well, actually I've been married for 15 years, so it's probably been at least 15 years. Most of my friends are out of debt, except for we have homes, but outside of that, there's no debt, no credit cards, no car payments, nothing like that. So it's like a really big thing. And Dave Ramsey says they should teach this in school. This is the common sense stuff that they don't teach you about in school. And it is so much of a burden when you're under that rock of debt. So being able to find that, and I know you guys are still in debt currently. How many months do you guys think you have left? Is it like 2, 3?
3.
About 3
3.
months.
I mean, it's the light at the end of the tunnel. Like the finish line is right there.
God.
Yeah. I mean, and yes, you understand that you're signing up for loans, and like I accept that I signed up for them, but you just don't realize, like, I don't know, like I just did not imagine the sacrifice attached to that when you were 18, you know, like, and I knew not to have a credit card, but this was good debt. This is what you needed to be successful. Like if you wanted to make money, you had to, you know, give out money to, you know, and it's just not true.
Money to make money.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, there's so many other ways to do it. So.
There is. And I mean, I don't want to say that it's always bad to go into debt, because sometimes you just have to go into debt. It can happen. But if you can avoid debt, you know, it's just that much easier. Like I know for me personally, when I go to work and I don't really like my job, you guys have probably seen it in TikTok. I don't really like my job. But like, I'm not as dependent on it as some of the other people are that are like on my team that we talk with every day through chat. Like, you know, people are talking about working overtime because they got to pay for such and such. And I'm like, I don't want to do overtime. I don't have any extra bills like that. Like I'm in a different space. Like that's not for me. But if you have to get into debt, sometimes you do what you got to do to get by. But even if it's not Dave Ramsey, maybe you happen to find working on a dream. There are people out there that you can like look at and model yourselves after to get that motivation and to find tips. And that's all it is. You don't even have to see every video. You could just see one video that like, hey, the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh yeah, I really shouldn't be going further into debt. Or, you know, like you guys are doing, and we'll talk about this too. I need to like make a plan and a budget. And as you said, Brian, once you make that budget and you actually see, especially now it's so easy when most people don't carry cash and they're just swiping the card, it's so easy to not see where your money is going.
No emotion attached to that.
Yeah, it's shoot, oh, yep, shoot. And then
the card doesn't change size, you know, the wad does. The card
yeah, right.
it's the same.
Or then, you know, some of the people that have like overdraft protection, and you know, you're just like, oh no, I know I'm good. I'll swipe it. And then you look and you're like, oh man, I owe like $500 in overdraft fees, or not overdraft, but in the protection. And it's
banks just make like trillions of dollars. I can't remember what the number is, but it's, if you Google it, it's insane what banks make over the year in overdraft fees, because you just made one extra swipe or two extra swipes that you shouldn't have made.
It's funny. I remember being at the bank and like signing up for my checking account, and the lady's like, well, do you want overdraft protection? And I said, no. And she was like, well, what if you're at the register buying something and you don't have any money in your account? Like, we would protect that. And I said, then I shouldn't be buying it.
Yeah, right.
And she was like, oh, okay.
It's just, and it's in their like language to just sell that to you. Like, oh yeah, I guess I should buy that because that makes total sense.
Right. It does. And I'll tell you how they even still get you. So what we do is we just have our savings account connected to the checking account as the protection. But if we don't really like physically budget like we used to, but you have an idea of the amount of money that you have, and we may check the bank account, you know, once a week or, you know, every other week or whatever. But there are times where we go over and we have the money, of course, in the savings account to protect ourselves, but they charge you, like I can go and internally transfer from one account to another account, no charge. But if the bank does it, they charge me $5.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, and it's a credit union.
Money. They're moving your own money. Like,
yeah. I'm like, how is that different than if I mean, you know, but whatever. It's an automated process, right? Like no one's physically like manually moving my money from account A to account B. Why shouldn't it be the same? Why shouldn't it be?
That the bank is a business too.
They're smarter than we are. They have figured this out, and they've been studying this for a long time. They study people, they study behaviors. They know exactly how and why of what they're doing.
Yep. That's why I invested in a couple of banks, because I'm like, once the economy goes back and interest rates go back up, I got a few shares.
Make it work in your favor.
Yeah, right. So, and I do want to talk about, can we explain to the people who may catch this about the steps involved in the total money makeover or financial piece, and how it works, starting from the debt snowball?
So you have your 7 baby steps. If you are in dire straits, there is a baby step 0 where you just take care of your 4 walls. So he just asks that you try to get current on your bills, have food, have transportation, and have clothing. If you can get that settled and squared away, then you move on to baby step 1, which is saving $1,000 small baby emergency fund. This is just to cover small emergencies because he says it will rain, so just be prepared. And so those are kind of like car fixes or a vet bill or things like that. Then baby step 2 would be paying off all your debts except your house. So credit cards, student loans, personal loans, all sorts of loans, medical debt, all of that. And then baby step 3 is to have your fully funded emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. So you would look at your budget, times it by 3 or 6, and then you save that into like a money market account. And that is to be used for emergencies. It's not to be invested or anything, but if anything in the house breaks or you need a new car, you have it there for you. And then baby step 4 is investing 15% of your income to build your wealth. Baby step 5 is to help save for kids' college. Baby step 6 is to pay off your house. And then baby step 7 is to live and give like no one else. So you are completely financially free and stable, and you get to take vacations and help out charities and your neighbor, things like that.
Yep. And that may, running it down like that, people may still not fully understand it, which is fine. But as long as you heard what she said first, she said 0, which if you are not current on your home or your other bills, pay the mortgage last. That will be the last thing that ever gets taken from you. So pay the home last, because there's a lot of red tape that has to be done before your home gets taken away. So if you've got some credit card debt or some medical bills, there's things that you can do. And one of the things that you guys did or were able to find, and some people can do this with like medical bills and things, maybe there's different, you can call your hospital and say, hey, or your doctor's office and say, hey, I'm having trouble paying this. Can you guys help me? And sometimes they'll knock half of it off, 25% off. You guys, with your student loans, you were able to find some different ways aside from just paying it off to get some help with that. What did you guys do to do that?
Oh, the forgiveness is what you're talking about. The forgiveness.
So I work in a public entity, and I work in the school systems. And so I was able to apply for the teacher forgiveness because I work on gross motor skills and I'm teaching kids how to walk and all that stuff. And so I was able to get the $17,500 forgiven. I did a lot of research. I was going for the public service loan forgiveness plan, which would forgive it all in the 10 years. But 10 years is a long time and it wasn't guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then when that started to be forgiven, it was like less than 1% was actually getting it. And so I looked at the teacher loan forgiveness that I also qualified for. And Dave Ramsey also spoke on it, that this one was actually being promised and it had a better outcome. And as long as you taught in a Title I school, you would be able to qualify. And so I was able to apply and I got approved. And so I got the forgiveness that way. And we were also able to refinance too and help our interest rates. So that was another little tool.
Nice. And can you say that amount again? Because that's a big number. How much were you able to get forgiven?
$17,500.
I remember seeing the video when Brian, when you made that, man, and I was like, how much?
I know.
Well, and see, I'll make a point here to say we were going to do the initial, or we were on the initial 10-year forgiveness program in the beginning, but I was like, the reason I didn't like it is because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I don't like it because there's way too much that changes in government in 10 years.
Yep.
I was like, we get to the 10-year mark and they're like, oh, sorry, we actually used your money for something else.
Yep.
And so you actually have to pay it now. Oh, there's more interest, by the way. So I just didn't trust the government to do that. That's why we're doing this crazy thing the way we're doing it.
Yep.
And so many people have told me like, oh, you could just sign up for a public loan forgiveness. So when we got to the 5-year, that was kind of a part of the same deal, but you were already working in the system for 5 years.
You did have to work for 5 years at the school system, but 5 years is better than 10. And it just never sat well. And like too, like I took out the loans. So forgiveness is great. Like I am so thankful for it, but to just kind of sit on this when we could potentially pay it off sooner, it was just the better road to take for us.
Yeah.
And that we got it in 5 years now, which is really crazy. Like to think about all we went through for 5 years, but like 5 years from now, it's going to be a distant memory.
Yep.
I mean,
you got to live like no one else. So later,
live like no one else.
So
that's financial freedom.
Yep. And so with that, with the videos and the content that you guys make, rice and beans and rice, as Dave would say. I see you guys cooking at home a lot. And, I'm the Omaha fatty. So oftentimes when I'm making posts for my Omaha fatty page, it's of us going out to or getting food from, restaurants and whatnot. How has it been for you guys figuring a plan to save at home and eat at home?
Hard. It was hard for me.
It's a meal plan you do weekly.
Yes. It was so in the very beginning when we started Dave Ramsey, he said to track what you're doing, like track your habits. Yep. And see what you're spending money on so that you could build a budget that would be applicable. You don't want to set up this budget that's actually not able to happen. Like you need to know how much you're spending on groceries. You need to know how much you're spending on eating out.
Right.
And so that first month, I realized we were spending like $600 eating out or something crazy.
Yep.
See, and that's where people get scared. I'm sorry, I'm gonna just put a little note in. That's where people kind of get scared, especially with like the way we're doing it.
Yep.
And how we're doing it. People get scared and like they think Dave Ramsey and they look at us and they're like, ooh, we don't want to do Dave Ramsey. He's living like broke people. I don't want to live like broke people. I work too hard for my money. And I'm just like, man, you got to make it work for you. Like I had, what I mean? If you want your beer money at the end of the week, you budget that in, man. If you want to go out, you just put what, 100, 200, if it can fit in your little budget, depending on your situation. If you're in real bad, you might not be able to do that. But you know what I mean? If you got some play in there and you can make it work, make it work. It's just yours. You just need to stick to it. You just got to build in that discipline.
Well, and so when I saw that number, I was like, okay, like we can start cooking at home. And I was not a good cook. And so I just started off real simple, like hamburger helpers and simple crock pot meals and kind of learning like what blanching was, I knew no kitchen terms at all.
Yeah.
So I just kind of started, we had some bad meals, but we ate through it. There's always pizza around the corner if you really need it.
Yeah.
So I worked on the box and then went to Pinterest and then kind of I've stepped up my game, I think.
Branched out.
But yeah, that was probably the hardest part for me because I love quality time. Like I eat out so I can eat out with others.
Yeah.
I love that fellowship,
Yep.
And so taking that and pulling the reins back on it, like now I just do it on Fridays, well, before COVID, and just kind of had my personal money and you spend your money where you value,
Yep.
And so I had my personal money and then when that was gone, that was gone.
And I think that may be a point where people may not fully understand, especially if they're only catching like bits and pieces of what Dave is or any other financial counselor is possibly saying. Like it's not as strict as you think that it might be. You're just trying to make your money work as efficiently as possible. So you can still do things. And the rule is to always pay yourself first. So there's still an option to have you know, a Friday night out or a Saturday night out. It's just not doing it every day. It's just cutting back. So I think people might misunderstand that. And Brian, I was actually going to ask you, like, have you guys had anyone who was looking at you like, nah, that's not for me. I'm not doing that. Because debt is normal.
Right.
People get very turned. If you do this, if you're watching this and you do this, you are going to have to learn when to talk and when not to talk. If people come to you, so here's what I will say is people have certainly had their opinions, and I have projected in the same manner, in the same, you know, with the same a bit of enthusiasm as we have attacked this debt. But if you have someone with those strong feelings, you cannot attack them with this, because all you're going to do is argue with them, and they're going to be turned off from Dave Ramsey. You want people, most people who are into Dave Ramsey want other people turned on to it. So they're going to have their opinions. You're going to have to be stubborn and just let it go. Because you're just going to have to learn to do what you're doing. And you know what you're doing is right, because how many millions of people have done this and been debt free because of it? So,
and then it comes to a point where, like, and this is not even specific to financial situations. This is just life in general. At some point, people are so dug in whatever their beliefs are that there's no point in you arguing. Like, you're not getting anywhere. So you just, like you said, you just keep your thoughts to yourself and you just lead by example. You just do whatever it is.
Especially with money.
Yes.
Money is a hot topic. Like, you're not going to tell me how to spend my money. Like, no, like, you know, like, we're just trying to help. Like,
so where it came down to it, when people started seeing the TikToks, like people that I worked with, people that people that we came in contact with, when we just talked about it, and they were just like, oh, okay, whatever. Or like, they thought it was, you know, like, hey, we're going out to eat. Oh, okay, well, I got my own, you know. Eat my little noodles, eat my ramen over here, eat my leftovers. But when they started seeing, the difference came in this, like, last year, I want to say year and a half. In this last year, I don't know if you noticed people like acting differently, like on your side. I noticed people just, their reactions to what we were doing were completely different when it's like, as this 100,000 came down, they're like, how did you do that again? Oh, wait a minute. You know, so now that people started asking questions, so you have to just, I think just living the example was the biggest thing, and not projecting it. More's caught than taught.
Well, I do want to point out also that it's not just you're going through financial peace and you got all the answers and everything falls into place, or you read the book and you're good to go. Like, stuff still happens, and whether you have the emergency fund or more, you know, something is going to happen at some point, whether it's just a car repair, or like you guys said, like if you have a pet, or just whatever it is, some kind of financial crisis may hit at some point. And if you're able to have a little nest egg available for that, I mean, like, it's so much less stress. Like, we don't by any chance have, like, we're not anywhere near like out of debt because this house is but with us being in a position where we went through like the total money makeover, it allowed us to save up more money than we ever saved and ever had, and put a substantial down payment on the home that we currently live in, and plus the amount that we got from selling our previous home. Like, we are okay. And with this being our only debt, like, we are able to pay so much extra a month, and it just feels good. Like, we know that if something happens, we're going to be okay. Like, Brian, I know you had commented, Brian, now that I think about it, it may have been like almost a year since we've been following each other on TikTok, because I remember talking about having to buy a new car, and you commented on it.
Yes.
And things like that have happened.
That's what it was. We both had Kias.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks, especially to have to buy a vehicle when you're not planning on it. Maybe it broke down, or like my wife had last year, she got rear-ended, and we only had the car about a year, but she got rear-ended and the car got totaled. We got a decent amount from the insurance, but it wasn't enough to replace the vehicle at the level that she was at, so we had to come out of pocket. And it wasn't fun to come out of pocket for something where you already had a car and we're fine. But I tell you what, man, just knowing that we had that money in the bank and we were able to just go and write a check, like the way that it feels, like you don't look at money the same when you don't have it, and then when you do, like it just is like when Dave says that the grass feels different and your car drives differently when you don't pay, like it's true. It's all true. So, but what I also wanted to say was, like, going through the financial piece or reading the book, that isn't all the work that it takes. You guys work like crazy. You guys each have multiple jobs and have worked hard for this. Like, it doesn't come easy. You got to dedicate yourself to it. And I think, I don't know what it was that attracted me to you guys, for me to continue to watch, but I saw how excited you guys were when you would go through the house and remove those links. Like,
it's a good feeling, man. It's a good feeling.
It felt good for me to watch you guys do that. Like, so I was like, yeah, I got to follow this page. But yeah, that's what it is with, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, there is a power that comes along with it, and a little platform that you have that you're able to use and share, whatever it is that you are doing. And I think that what you guys are doing, is just great to see, even though I'm not in that position anymore. Like, I was there before, so I know what it was. And even though we didn't have that much debt, I mean, I think we had like 50,000 or something, like maybe not even that much.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you're young and you don't make a lot of money. I mean, this is 15, 16. Well, we've been married for over 15 years. So, I mean, you're thinking like 17 years ago. So I'm like 22 when you have 50 grand in debt.
But I mean, yeah, that's one of those things, like, to us, we're just like, oh, 50 or 24, you know what I mean? But like, to that person in that moment right there, or to that couple or whatever is going on, to that person, it's like the world has just, if they figured out that they just had to buy that car to get to work because their car died or whatever, that's a lot.
It is
for them.
I will say one story that sticks out in my mind. I was born with a congenital heart defect, and so I've had to have surgery every so often. And so we knew that surgery was probably going to be in the next like 2 years. Like it was,
Mhm.
And so we had started this journey, and I remember sitting on the couch. It was Christmas time, and I took a picture of him putting up the lights, and we had just hit the 199 mark. Like, we were under 200,000. I was pumped. I was so excited. And then I was like, man, we're like actually doing this. Like, that's like, that's a 90 to 100 grand. Like, we just paid off. And the next day I had my doctor's appointment, and they were like, so you need surgery next week. Like, it's not going to be a year from now, not 2 years from now. You need it next week. And so we paused the baby steps. We saved up what we could.
It was your pacemaker.
Yes. And I was just so thankful. Like, we wouldn't have known what to do.
Yep.
Like, I mean, because we probably would have been with the same amount of debt, like paying the minimums, trying to like still grind and hustle and work, but we wouldn't have had any progress, and we wouldn't have had any hope, and and then to add the medical debt on top of that, it just kind of, I don't know, like from that point, I was like, okay, this is working. This is going to work. And so we were able to restart our snowball. Like, my surgery was in December.
Mhm.
And by the time the medical bills slowly roll in, we were able to start back up that April.
Yeah.
And so it's just moments like that. You're like, okay, like this does it, and your budget gives you freedom. It doesn't limit your freedom. So.
Yep. And if nothing else, I mean, when you have a better understanding of your personal finances, you're empowered. So like you just look at things a little differently. Whereas if you didn't have that experience, like you said, you kind of would have been lost. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But you're like, no, we've been here before. Like we already know what to do. We're going to pause this. We're going to start it back after this is taken care of. So, that's really what I want people to understand is, again, you can customize and personalize the plan to whatever fits your lifestyle. Like it's not a cookie cutter answer. It's not the same for everyone. And of course, people don't make the same amount of money. Everybody doesn't have, 3 or 4 jobs, or you make a good income. Some people have to have 3 or 4 jobs, or some people don't even have to have jobs, but they just are so dedicated and excited to pay that debt down that they have multiple jobs. Like whatever it is, I like to think of it as like, you just pick, like you follow the plan loosely. Like we were like gazelle intense for a little bit, but then we just started picking the things that we really liked and that worked for us. Like, so we may have still went out to eat, like after the first however many months, like 6 months or so, we might've started eating back out a little bit, but it was still little compared to what we were doing before. Because like you said, Amy, when we looked at how much money we were spending when we were going out to eat at that time, it was just like, oh man, no, we can't do this. We cannot do this. We're spending $100 or $200 a week on eating out, or during the, if you don't take your lunch, Brian, and you do go out with the guys from the office or whatever. And, that adds up if you do that 2, 3, 4 times a week, and you're doing it every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just take it on a calculator. Just add like 10, whatever it is, add what you spend, like $10 times 5 times what, 4 weeks in a month, or times it by 52 weeks in a year, and you'll figure out where your money went.
Yeah. You know what?
I had a notebook to track ours. Like I had a page in the notebook for that month, and I tracked it, and I was like, whoo.
And there's going to be times when unless you're like super, super, super good at this, there's going to be times when you screw it up, or when you go $20 over here or 50. Like our first couple months, it takes you about like 3 to 6 months to get it right, to get that budget right.
Yeah.
And I think we spent $400 in groceries and $700 in eating out that first month that we had tracked. And that was actually a good month, you said. So you add that up, but then like the next month, it was like $20 over. We were $20 over budget. So you take those 2 examples, you're like, oh, you still messed up, and you start to feel down on yourself. But if you look at where you are from where you came from,
yep,
you're doing pretty. Like $20 over is nothing compared to your $700.
You gotta give yourself grace. Like that's just what it is.
It's just like with anything else. I mean, if you're going to the gym and working out, like you're not gonna all of a sudden just, have it or you're packing on muscle and burning fat like right away. It's like, no, there's a process, and you might do something wrong, or maybe your form is incorrect or something, and somebody comes along and is like, hey, you need to keep your back straight when you do this. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks. And then you start to learn from that, and it grows and you get stronger faster. It's the same thing. Like this is financial fitness. So, I mean, it's the same concept. And
patience. It takes so much patience. I'm going to take that Gary Vee quote right there. Everything takes patience. Okay, I'll put this in there too. Like building the TikTok. He's like, don't look at the followers. Don't look at the likes. Don't look at the, you know what I mean? Just be patient and understand that. Like I was like, okay, this Dave Ramsey thing worked. This Gary Vee guy, he looks pretty successful. So let's try this. Let's see if this TikTok. I was like, oh, a follower here, a follower there. I was like, let's keep posting and just see what pops out. And like, now it's, we're not by any means like TikTok famous or anything like that. But I'm like, you look at where we were and where we are now, we had like 50 followers and we thought that was awesome. We now have like 700. So like, by no means are we, big or anything like that. But to those people, like to you and to so many others that are like, wow, you guys are, You know what I mean? What you guys are doing is awesome. Like that's the stuff that like really hits, and you're like, okay, now I know why we're doing this.
Yeah, yeah. And I tell you, again, even with me not being in that position anymore, like it is still exciting for me to see you guys do what you're doing. And like, I'm like, oh man, that's got to be such a great feeling. And I remember like you guys are like 6 months left, and I was like, yeah. And then and then I'm like kind of like keeping track in my head of how many months are left. And I know how excited you guys will be once you finally get there. And when you start to be able to actually put money into savings and do things that you put off for a long time because you were being so strict about where your money goes. It's a whole different world, man. And I'm happy that you guys stumbled upon it and that you have that experience, because when like if you don't go through things in life, like how do you learn, or how do you get better? Like if everything is always going well, like how do you know? It's like the whole thing is, once you get punched in the mouth, or life punches you in the mouth, if you've never been through anything, again, you're like, ow, like what do I do now? But if you've been there, you're like, okay, I can take a punch, I can get back up, and we're just going to keep going forward. So man, it's such a wonderful thing. And I don't think I've seen anyone else on any other platform. I mean, it just hasn't popped up that people are sharing their financial journey like you guys have been doing. So I love it. Keep doing what you're doing. Like,
your content too.
Yeah.
Inspiring too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place, and I'm glad that I found your account. And like I said, I'm just happy, and I know that you guys are working hard, and it's tough, and everybody doesn't understand what you're doing, or they don't know because they're not going through the same things as you are, and they're keeping up with the Joneses, as they say, buying new cars or whatever it is. And you're like, no, I'm good with my used car. I'm not rich, so I'm not buying a new car. I'm not buying a brand new car. That's not happen. That's never gonna happen. So
I got a big dent in my car. I just left it there. It's like, it's fine.
Yep.
Car still runs, the door still works. It's fine.
Yep. And that's the thing too, when something like that happens, when you have a used car that maybe you don't love, you might be upset if like something happens to it, but you're not crushed like you are if you go and buy a brand new car and you're paying $400 a month for it, or whatever it is. It's just a different feeling. So, but is there anything else that you guys would like to tell anyone who might be watching? Like what is like one thing that you would want them to know about the debt-free journey?
Good question.
It's not easy, but everybody that we have heard that I've asked that question, or they've said, hey, I went through that, or I've been there, or we're debt free, have the same tone when they say it. And that's the one thing I've been listening to. Oh, that's the one thing that whispers in my ear over and over. They're just like, oh man, it's such a great feeling. They just have this ease that comes off of them when they say it. And I'm just like, wow, like that. And they're just walking away. And that's what just like sticks in my head. It's not what they said, but it was just the way that they said it. And you're just like, oh man. And that's what sticks in my head, is like, that's it right there. That's where I want to be.
Yep. And I go back to like when I saw that number and when I saw the mountain we were trying to climb, and I just was like, what if we could? What if we could? And so kind of like the little engine that could. And so just, what if you can? Like, what if you could be better off tomorrow than you are today? And it just takes one choice. And then one choice, kind of doing it. And they call it the baby steps for a reason. Like, you have to take little tiny steps, especially in the beginning. You get those quick wins, and then it's going to grow. And so just staying true to who you are and what if you can, and just having that hope that tomorrow you'll be in a better spot than you were today. Has kept me going. And just thinking, having that mindset, like, just what if you could? Like, what if you could?
And it's like a 12-step program. It's one day at a time. Like just you don't have to do it all today. You didn't accumulate all your debt in one day or 2 days. Like, it took time. So it's going to take time to work off that debt. So
yes,
just like weight loss, it doesn't happen overnight.
No. And more than anything, I'm actually, this sounds like a funny term, but I'm actually very grateful for the debt. I'm actually very grateful for,
I get it.
what we've been able to do. I'm also grateful for finding Dave Ramsey and being along on this journey, because if we hadn't, or like school was paid for, we would have probably just be bopping around on credit cards or whatever, and wouldn't have known how aggressively to pay off the house or anything like that, and probably been sitting on a bubble we didn't know about.
Yep.
The foundation for us too, like the foundation for our marriage, like we got married and then we started this, like that was.
Oh yeah. That's huge, because finances are like one of the major reasons for divorce. So, people are always like, I have my account, she has her account, or he has his account, I have my account. It's like, no, you're doing it together. So like, it's, you share the money. Like,
you become one, like you become one.
Yeah. So if you can get on the same page there, I mean, that is such, like you were saying, that ease, Brian, it's so much easier when you are both on the same page, because it won't work if only one of you are doing it. It won't.
No, and you're just gonna exhaust yourself if you're gonna try and do it, or you're gonna try and make them do it. It's just not feasible or it's not healthy.
Yep. And then you get bitter. There's
right.
a bitter.
It's not fair if one spouse is carrying the stress of it.
Yeah, trying to do double time because
I had a ton of guilt. Like, I brought in most of this debt.
I remember you saying that in one of the videos.
Yeah. And I had to forgive myself. Like, I had to forgive myself to be able to make this work.
Yeah.
And I was very thankful.
Circumstances kind of conducted that one for doing school and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, and
you shouldn't feel guilty. I mean, you went to school because you tried to better yourself and improve. There shouldn't be that cloud that hangs over you for something like that. It should be like a good thing. So it's just crazy that so many people feel that way, I'm sure. Like, and especially when you work so hard to go through school and you pay so much money, and then when you get out of school, you don't even find a job in the field that you went to school for. Like, it's, I mean, I can't imagine what people feel like when they go through that.
Right. And you make sacrifices in school. Like, at least, I did, to speak for myself. Like, I mean, I went to undergrad and then I made the sacrifice to go to grad school, which delayed, my entry into like the true workforce. Like, I worked in grad school, but it wasn't anything full time or anything like that to start working on my undergrad loans. Like, so they were just kind of racking interest as, and then you come out and you make even more sacrifice. And then, you go to get married and I'm like, well, I have all this, like, and, for him not to have nearly as much, I was just like, oh, like, sorry.
Well, and see, that's kind of the misconception they give you when you go to medical school, or at least society makes you think that, oh, you're a doctor, because that's what it was, a doctorate in physical therapy. So they make you think like, oh, she's a doctor, so you should be good. Why people tell me, why are you even working? Like, she's a doctor. I'm like,
not an MD.
But like, well, even MDs, like, they have, if you want to go do that, that's still another 7 years of school. If you don't plan it out right, if you don't do things the right way, or look for scholarships and grants and stuff like that, and you dormed because you wanted to have that college experience that they tell you should have. But that is the misconception, is that people think that, oh, you're a doctor, so that shouldn't be a problem. You're gonna that is a lie.
I mean, we make enough, like, if you took out student loans, like, we make enough to be comfortable, and
yeah, if you take care of it, if you budget and you do what you're supposed to do, but
It's almost like it was by design that they want us to go into debt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how can we make money off this endeavor?
Yeah.
Again, the bank's making money.
Yep. So that's what they say. Money makes the world go round. But again, I just kudos to you guys. Congratulations for the journey. I'll be watching closely for the day when I see the video when the last link is gone and you guys get to celebrate. So what do you guys have? Is that planned out already? What the celebration looks like?
So I think we've talked about this a lot. And so I happen to know when our bank account reflects the next day, like paychecks. So like when your paycheck drops, usually they like, you know, the app like updates at 5 a.m. So I plan probably on being up at 5 a.m. and seeing that come in and waking him up with a mimosa maybe and putting and making that payment. And then we kind of have ideas on like a restaurant that we might go to celebrate in, or I personally, I want to, so Mount Mitchell is the highest mountain east of the Mississippi. So for me personally, at some point when we're debt free, I want to go climb that.
Nice.
That's like a like replication of the debt we climbed. And so I don't think that'll be the day we are debt free. Definitely in the plan.
Nice. Are you guys gonna try to call Dave Ramsey and do the scream?
That is the plan. Actually, so the plan might be to have the Mount Mitchell trip, spend a day over there at Mount Mitchell, do the climb, because it's about an hour or something away from us from here, and then do like a day there and then go over to Nashville like the next day, we hope. But
depending upon COVID, depending upon, because they say that they want their debt-free screams. I've researched. They want their debt-free screams within the 6 months. So it could be like if we became debt-free in May, then we might be doing our debt-free scream in November. So
hey,
depends.
that's all right.
Yeah.
So if COVID's good by then we can go in person, you know?
Nice. Yeah. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, like things clear up and we can get back to doing stuff like that. So, well, I don't want to take much more of your time. Life is busy and I don't want to embark anymore on I don't want to intrude on your quality time, because I know you guys again work like crazy and 3-4 jobs. So can you guys tell people where they can find you on social media, your TikToks and your Twitter handle and all that jazz?
TikTok is the biggest one we're on. I haven't been so active on Twitter, but we'll get there. But it's Working on a Dream. At Working on a Dream.
All right. I'll make sure to include that in the show notes as well. It'll be in there for people to follow you guys. I'll have a link and everything. So, man, I'm so glad that we got an opportunity to sit and talk about this. So thank you guys so much for agreeing to be on.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was so excited to do this, man. You guys kill it. So just keep killing it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
All right. So if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening to one of the audio platforms, please share, like, subscribe, all that good jazz. Help us grow and help people see the message that we talked about today in financial peace and debt freedom. That's what it is, man. Smile, help someone else smile, laugh, and help someone else laugh all day, every day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.